Hey there, I'm Kylie, and here's my story. I'm 28, love fitness, and I teach at a local gym. That's where I met Jack, a regular who soon became much more. We clicked instantly. Before I knew it, we were planning a wedding. Jack's got a younger brother, Mike. Cool guy, really. We hit it off as friends from the get-go. Now, Jack's mom, Linda? That's a whole other story. She's had it out for me since day one. Thinks I'm just some gym rat leading her sons astray. One day, Jack, Mike, and I were at the gym. Jack was lifting weights, Mike was on the treadmill, and I was coaching a class. Linda walked in, unexpected. Hey, Linda. I greeted her, trying to be friendly. She just narrowed her eyes at me, watching my boys. Are you? I was taken aback. Just doing my job here. Linda scoffed. Job? Parading around in those tight clothes? Jack, hearing this, dropped his weights with a clang and came over. Mom, come on. That's not fair. Linda turned to him. Fair? I know what I see. Your wife's too friendly with everyone, especially men. Mike, panting from his run, joined us. Mom, you're being ridiculous. Linda shot him a look. Don't you start. I know what's going on here. I tried to calm the situation. Linda, I'm just working. There's nothing going on. But Linda was on a roll. I've seen your Instagram, Kylie. All those likes and comments from men. What's that about? Jack intervened. Mom, those are just her clients and friends. Linda wasn't having it. Friends? Or something more? You need to open your eyes, Jack. I could feel the tension rising. This wasn't new. Linda had always been suspicious of me, but this was the first time she'd confronted me so openly. Look, Linda, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, I love Jack. Nothing's going on. Linda just huffed, we'll see about that. She stormed out, leaving the three of us in an awkward silence. Jack put his arm around me. Sorry about her, Kylie. She's just protective. Mike chimed in. Yeah, protective like a bulldog. I tried to laugh it off, but deep down, Linda's words stung. I knew this was just the beginning of something bigger, something messier. But there I was, caught in the middle of a family I was trying so hard to be a part of. That night, as Jack and I lay in bed, he turned to me. You know I trust you, right? I nodded, I know. But your mom. Jack sighed. Yeah, my mom. She's always been tough, but we'll get through this. Together. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But Linda's accusations lingered in my mind, a dark cloud over our marriage that I couldn't shake off. And that was just the beginning. It wasn't long after Linda's gym outburst that things took a turn for the worse. We were all at Jack's place for a family dinner, me, Jack, Mike, and, of course, Linda. The air was already heavy with unspoken tension. Mike was the first to break the silence. So, Kylie, how's the gym life treating you? I smiled, trying to keep things light. Same old, really. Busy as ever. Linda, who had been quietly seething, saw her chance. Busy flirting with your male clients, you mean? Her voice was like ice. Jack, sitting next to me, stiffened. Mom, not now, please. But Linda was relentless. Oh, I'll say what I need to. I saw those comments on your Instagram, Kylie. Men drooling over you like you're some kind of prize. I could feel my face flushing with anger and embarrassment. Linda, those are just clients and gym friends. Nothing inappropriate. She snorted. Friends? Is that what they call it these days? Mike jumped in, trying to defend me. Mom, you're way off base here. Linda turned her glare to him. And you? Always defending her. What's going on between you two? Always together, always whispering. The accusation hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. Jack's face was a mix of confusion and anger. Mom, what the hell are you talking about? Linda leaned forward, eyes locked on mine. I'm talking about betrayal, Jack. Your wife and your brother, sneaking around. I was speechless. This was insane. Linda, that's a disgusting thing to say. Mike's like a brother to me. Mike was red-faced. Mom, you're way out of line. Kylie's my sister-in-law. That's it. Jack's voice was low and dangerous. Mom, you need to stop. This is crazy. But Linda wouldn't let up. Open your eyes, Jack. I'm just trying to protect you from her. The rest of the meal passed in uncomfortable silence. After dinner, Jack confronted me in our bedroom, his voice shaking with barely contained fury. Kylie, is there any truth to what my mom is saying? About you and Mike? I felt like I'd been slapped. Jack, are you serious? Your mom's accusations are insane. You know me. You know Mike. How could you even think? Jack paced the room, running his hands through his hair. I don't know what to think anymore, Kylie. My mom's got me questioning everything. I was on the verge of tears. So, you're taking her side? You believe her over me? Jack stopped, looking lost. I don't know what I believe. I need some time to think. And with that, he left the room, leaving me alone, hurt, and confused. Linda's words had wormed their way into our marriage, casting a dark shadow over everything. I knew then that things between Jack and me were never going to be the same again. A few months after that disastrous dinner, I found out I was pregnant. You'd think this would be happy news, but with everything going on, it just added fuel to the fire. I remember telling Jack. We were in our kitchen, a place where we'd shared so many laughs before all this mess. Jack, I'm pregnant, I said, my voice trembling. He looked up, his expression a mix of shock and something else I couldn't quite place. Pregnant? Wow, are you sure? His reaction stung. Yes, I'm sure, Jack. We're going to have a baby. He came over and hugged me, but it felt forced. That's great, Kylie. Really great. But the doubt was there, lingering in his eyes. And it wasn't long before Linda got wind of the news. We were at her place, the usual Sunday visit that had become more tense than ever. As soon as we walked in, Linda was on us like a hawk. So, I hear you're pregnant, Kylie, she said, her voice dripping with unspoken accusations. Yeah, we're expecting, Jack replied, trying to sound upbeat. Linda raised an eyebrow. Expecting, huh? And you're sure it's yours, Jack? Jack's jaw clenched. Mom, don't start this again. But Linda wasn't deterred. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, Jack. Your wife's been very friendly with a lot of men. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Linda, are you seriously suggesting that I cheated on Jack? That this baby isn't his? She shrugged. I'm just concerned for my son. You can't blame a mother for that. Mike, who'd been quiet till then, spoke up. Mom, this is crazy. You need to stop. Linda shot him a look. You stay out of this, Mike. This is between Jack, Kylie, and me. The rest of the visit was unbearable. Linda kept dropping hints and making snide comments. It was like she was trying to turn Jack against me. When we got home, Jack was distant. He sat on the couch, staring at nothing. Jack, talk to me, please, I pleaded, sitting next to him. He looked at me, his eyes filled with confusion and hurt. Kylie, my mom's words, they're getting to me. I don't want to believe her, but... But what, Jack? You think I cheated on you? That I'm carrying someone else's baby? My voice cracked with emotion. Jack sighed, running his hands through his hair. I don't know what to think, Kylie. This is all just too much. I felt a tear roll down my cheek. This was supposed to be one of the happiest times in our lives, and instead, it was being poisoned by Linda's venom. That night, we went to bed in silence. The gap between us was growing, and I didn't know how to bridge it. All I knew was that I was carrying our child, and somehow, I had to find a way to protect our little family from falling apart. The day our son Lucas was born should have been the happiest day of our lives. But thanks to all the drama, it felt like walking on eggshells. We were in the hospital room, me exhausted and Jack looking like he didn't know whether to smile or frown. When the nurse handed Lucas to me, his tiny little face was just angelic, blonde hair and bright blue eyes. "He's beautiful, Kylie," Jack whispered, but I could see the wheels turning in his head. "Yeah, he is," I managed to say, trying to ignore the growing knot in my stomach. Later, when Linda and Mike came to visit, that's when things really hit the fan. Linda took one look at Lucas and her face said it all. "Well, isn't he a surprise? Blonde and blue-eyed?" Jack stiffened beside me. "Mom, what are you trying to say?" She just shrugged. "Nothing. Just an observation." Mike, holding Lucas, gave me a sympathetic look. "He's perfect, Kylie." But Linda wouldn't let it go. "It's just interesting, is all. Kylie's dark-haired, you're dark-haired, and here we have a little blondie." I felt my face burning with anger. "Linda, genetics can be unpredictable. My cousin has blonde hair. It's not unheard of." She just hummed, non-committal, her eyes boring into mine. After they left, Jack sat by my side, Lucas asleep in his crib. He was quiet, too quiet. "Jack, please," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Don't let your mom get in your head." He looked at me, then at Lucas. "I know, Kylie. It's hard, you know? With everything she's been saying." I reached for his hand. "Jack, look at me. I've never lied to you. I've never betrayed you. He's your son." Jack nodded slowly. "I know, Kylie. I do. It's just my mom, she's got this way of getting under my skin." That night, back home, the tension was palpable. Jack held Lucas, looking down at him with a mix of love and something else, doubt, maybe. "Jack, we need to get past this," I said, my voice firm. "We're a family now. We can't let your mom ruin this." He nodded. "You're right. We can't. I'll talk to her. I'll set things straight." But even as he said it, I knew it wasn't going to be that easy. Linda had planted seeds of doubt, and they were growing, choking the life out of our relationship. Over the next few weeks, it was like walking on a tightrope. Every comment, every look, every gesture was loaded with unspoken questions and accusations. The tension in our home had reached a breaking point. It was a chilly evening, the kind that should have seen us cuddled up together. Instead, Jack paced the living room like a caged animal. Lucas was asleep, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing. Jack stopped suddenly, turning to face me. His eyes were hard, his voice even harder. "Kylie, I can't take this anymore. We're doing a DNA test. For Lucas." I felt my blood run cold. "A DNA test? Are you out of your mind, Jack?" He was unyielding, his words like daggers. "It's not just about you and me, Kylie. I want Mike to take the test too." That hit me like a ton of bricks. "Mike? Your brother? You seriously think I'd..." "God, Jack." He didn't back down. "You heard my mom. There are doubts, Kylie, and they're eating me alive." I was shaking with fury. "So, your mom's delusional ideas are driving this? What happened to trusting your wife?" Jack's voice was cold. "This isn't just about trust. It's about certainty. I need to know for sure." Fighting back tears, I countered. "And if I say no? What's your grand plan then, Jack?" His response was chilling. "If you refuse, you and Lucas can't stay. I need to sort this out, and I can't do that with you here." I stared at him, disbelief and anger warring within me. "You'd kick out your own wife and son? Just like that?" He wouldn't meet my gaze. "That's the way it has to be, Kylie." I spent the night tossing and turning, anger and despair consuming me. The next morning, I confronted Jack again, hoping he'd come to his senses. "Jack, we need to talk. You can't be serious about this," I pleaded, Lucas in my arms. Jack was stoic, distant. I've thought it over, Kylie. The test happens, or you leave. That's it. I couldn't hold back my tears. This is insane, Jack. You're choosing your mother's paranoia over your family. He remained unmoved. It's not about choosing sides. It's about finding the truth. I was aghast. And what about us, Jack? What about our marriage? Jack sighed, a hint of regret in his eyes. I don't know, Kylie. Right now, I just need answers. With a heavy heart, I packed our bags. Lucas cooed, oblivious to the heartache surrounding him. At my mom's place, I let it all out. He's making us take a DNA test, Mom. He's lost his mind. My mom wrapped her arms around me, her voice laced with anger. That boy's throwing away his family over some nonsense. You're better than this, Kylie. I sobbed into her shoulder. I don't even recognize him anymore, Mom. She held me tight. You're strong, Kylie. You'll get through this. We'll get through this together. Jack's doubts had not only torn our family apart but had also stripped away the love and trust that once bound us. I was now facing a future full of uncertainties, a single mother with a broken heart, trying to make sense of the wreckage. After days of agonizing, I finally agreed to Jack's demand for a DNA test. It felt like walking into a storm, but I had no choice. I was at my mom's place when I called Jack to tell him my decision. Jack, I'll do the damn test, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a pause on the other end. Okay, I'll arrange it. And Mike agreed to do it too. I clenched my phone tighter. Fine. Let's just get this over with. A week later, we got the call. The results were in. My heart was pounding as we all gathered at the clinic again. Linda, who had insisted on coming, looked smug, as if she'd already won. The nurse handed the envelope to Jack. His hands were shaking as he opened it. We all held our breath. Jack's eyes scanned the paper, then he looked up, his expression unreadable. I'm the father. Lucas is my son. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I told you, Jack. I told you. Linda's face was a picture of shock and disbelief. But, how? I was so sure. Mike snorted. Yeah, you were sure. Sure about ruining our family over your paranoia. Jack just sat there, the paper in his hand, looking lost. I don't know what to say. I was furious, tears streaming down my face. Say? You want to say something now? After you put us through hell? Jack reached out, but I pulled away. Don't, Jack. Just, don't. Mike stood up, his anger palpable. I can't believe you did this, Jack. You and Mom. You two deserve each other. Linda tried to say something, but Mike cut her off. No, Mom. You've done enough. I'm done with this. And with that, he walked out, leaving Jack and Linda sitting there, looking at the proof of their unfounded doubts. As for me, I just felt empty. The test had proven my innocence, but it had cost me my marriage, my trust in Jack. It had torn our family apart. I walked out of that clinic knowing that things would never be the same again. The day of reckoning had come. I decided it was time to bring everything out into the open. I invited Jack, his brother Mike, and their mother Linda to my mom's house for a final confrontation. The atmosphere was tense as they walked in. Thanks for coming, I started, trying to keep my voice steady. There's a lot we need to discuss. Linda, with her usual sour expression, sat down stiffly. Well, I'm here. Let's hear it then. Jack looked uneasy, shifting in his seat. Kylie, I've been thinking. Maybe we can just forget all this happened. Start over, you know? I couldn't help but scoff at his suggestion. Forget? Oh, Jack, you've got no idea. I reached under the table and slammed the divorce papers in front of him. He stared at them, dumbfounded. Divorce? Why, Kylie? I thought we could work through this. That's when I pulled out the final ace from my sleeve, a folder filled with photographs. I tossed it to him. "This is why, Jack." As Jack rifled through the photos, his face drained of color. There he was, in each one, cozying up to another woman. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. "What's this?" Linda grabbed the photos, her eyes widening with disbelief. "This doesn't prove anything. She's not the right woman for you anyway, Jack." I was seething now. "Oh, it proves a lot, Linda. It shows Jack's hypocrisy. He accused me of cheating, and yet here he is, the real cheater." Mike, who had been silent, finally spoke up, his voice laced with disgust. "I can't believe you, Jack. All this time, you were pointing fingers at Kylie, and you were the guilty one?" Jack tried to interject. "It's not what it looks like, Mike cut him off. "Save it, Jack. I'm done with this. With you, with Mom's manipulations. I'm out." He stood up to leave, but Linda reached out. "Michael, please." Mike shook off her hand. "No, Mom. You and Jack have gone too far this time." With that, he left, leaving a palpable void in his wake. Linda, still clutching the photos, turned to Jack. "You can do better than her, you'll see." Jack, still in shock, didn't respond. He just sat there, a picture of betrayal and guilt. I looked at them, my decision firm. "You've both made your beds. Now you can lie in them. I'm done being part of this toxic mess." Linda tried to speak, but I raised my hand, stopping her. "No, Linda. There's nothing left to say. You've lost a daughter-in-law and a son today. I hope it was worth it." As they left, I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. I turned to my mom, who had been a silent pillar of strength throughout the ordeal. "It's over, Mom. Just us now." She hugged me tightly. "You did the right thing, Kylie. We're here for you, always." After the dust settled, the divorce was final. The court granted me alimony and compensation for Jack's betrayal. It was a small victory in the grand scheme of things, but it felt like justice. One day, Linda showed up at my door, unannounced, her face a mix of desperation and guilt. "Kylie, I need to see Lucas. He's my grandson." I stood in the doorway, blocking her path. "Not a chance, Linda. After everything you've done? You think you have the right to see him?" She tried to push past me, but I stood firm. "I'm his grandmother, Kylie. You can't keep me from him." I was unmoved, my voice cold. "Watch me. You lost that right when you tore this family apart." Linda's face twisted with anger. "You're being unreasonable, Kylie. I'm still family." I scoffed. "Family? No, Linda, you're nothing to us now." She left, defeated and alone. Later, I heard that Mike had left the city, cutting ties with both Linda and Jack. He couldn't stand what our family had become, thanks to their actions. As for Jack, he tried to reach out a few times, but I shut him down. "You've got your mom to thank for this mess," I told him one day on the phone. "Don't bother calling again." Jack was left to deal with the wreckage of his choices, with only Linda for company. But even she was no comfort, as he blamed her for everything that had gone wrong. Life moved on. I focused on Lucas and my work, rebuilding our lives piece by piece. My mom was a constant support, helping me navigate single motherhood. One evening, while Lucas was asleep and I sat with a cup of tea, my mom sat beside me. "You did the right thing, Kylie. It wasn't easy, but it was right." I nodded. "It's just us now. But we're stronger for it." The betrayal, the lies, the heartache, it was all behind us now. Ahead was a future filled with hope and the promise of something better. Jack and Linda were part of a past best forgotten. This was our time, our chance to start anew. And I was ready to take it.
I sat in the dim light of the study, my fingers trembling as they clutched the DVD. The label read, "The Birth of Nathan, April 17th, 2023. It felt like an eternity since I had stumbled upon it, each moment stretching endlessly as I grappled with its implications. The conversation with Richard earlier that day echoed in my mind, his words cutting deep. Infertility treatment? Why bother with that? Just focus on your duties around here, he had dismissed. It was then I felt reduced to nothing more than a mere convenience in his life. As I heard the front door open, signaling Richard's return, panic and resolve warred within me. I quickly concealed the DVD under a stack of papers and braced myself. My heart pounded against my ribcage, but I couldn't let fear win. "Richard, we need to talk," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He gave me a cursory glance, annoyance etched on his face. "What now, Emily? More complaints about feeling lonely or neglected?" Taking a deep breath, I confronted him. "It's about us, about our family. I found something today, Richard. A DVD." I watched his demeanor shift, a fleeting look of fear replacing his annoyance. "What DVD? What are you talking about?" "The birth of Nathan," I said, allowing the name to linger between us. "Who is Nathan, Richard? And who is Laura?" His facade crumbled. Panic flickered in his eyes as he looked for an escape. "It's not what you think, Emily. You're jumping to conclusions." "Am I?" My voice rose, a mix of anger and hurt. "I watched it, Richard. I saw you there with her during the birth. You were there for her in a way you've never been for me." His silence was a deafening confirmation. My world, once so stable, was crumbling. The man I had devoted my life to was a stranger, his betrayal exposed in the cruelest of ways. The doorbell's chime broke through the tense silence. I answered it to find a man, probably in his late 20s, looking back at me with an anxious expression. "Hello, can I help you?" My voice was barely a whisper. The man hesitated. "I'm Daniel. Is Richard here? I need to speak to him about Laura. It's urgent." A cold shiver ran down my spine at the mention of Laura's name. This was no coincidence. "Please come in," I said, moving aside. "I think we have a lot to discuss, Daniel." As we sat in the living room, the puzzle began to assemble itself. Daniel, Laura's ex-boyfriend, believed he might be Nathan's father, a child Richard claimed as his own. My marriage, it seemed, was built on lies and deceit. "I need your help," Daniel's voice was laced with desperation. "I have to know the truth about Nathan." I looked at him, feeling a newfound resolve. "You'll have it. We both will." As Richard entered the room, unaware of the impending storm, one thing became crystal clear to me. My life was about to change forever. I never imagined that my life would become a twisted tale of deceit. As I lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, my mind replayed the years spent with Richard. Our marriage, once a source of joy, now felt like a beautifully wrapped lie. I remembered our wedding day, the promise of a future filled with love and shared dreams. Richard had seemed like the perfect match, a successful businessman with a charming demeanor. But soon, the fairy tale began to unravel. Our attempts to start a family became a silent battleground. Every month brought disappointment, and with it Richard's indifference grew. I became a shadow in my own home, my presence only acknowledged when chores or errands demanded attention. The memory of my last attempt to address our childlessness resurfaced. "Richard, it's been 3 years. Maybe we should see a doctor, consider fertility treatment?" His response was a cold dismissal. "We don't need that. Just focus on your duties here." His words stung like a slap. It wasn't just about a child. It was about being partners, supporting each other. But to Richard, I was just a fixture in his pristine house, a part of the background. My thoughts were interrupted by the chime of my phone. A message from Daniel. "Can we meet tomorrow? I have something to show you." Curiosity and a sense of solidarity with Daniel compelled me to agree. The next morning, over coffee in a quiet cafe, Daniel shared his story. He and Laura had been in a serious relationship before Richard swept her off her feet. Daniel's face twisted in pain as he recounted how he had lost Laura to Richard's allure and wealth. "But I can't believe Nathan is Richard's son," Daniel said, his voice firm. "I've seen pictures of Nathan, and there's a resemblance to me at that age." His words sparked a fire within me. Richard's betrayal was deeper than I had imagined. He didn't just cheat, he stole a child's identity, a father's right. Daniel slid an envelope across the table. "I've hired a private investigator. We'll get to the bottom of this." I felt a mix of fear and determination as I took the envelope. It was time to face the ugly truth head on. And if Richard was indeed the liar and cheat he appeared to be, he would have to answer for it. Not just to me, but to everyone he had deceived. I returned home with a clear mission. I would no longer be the silent, dutiful wife. Richard's facade would crumble, and his true, repulsive nature would be exposed. And I would be the one to light the fuse. As I sat across from Richard at dinner, the silence was suffocating. Each clink of cutlery sounded like a thunderclap in the tense air. I could barely swallow my food, my thoughts consumed by the plan forming in my mind. "Richard," I finally broke the silence, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "We need to talk about our future." He looked up, his eyes void of the warmth they once held. "What about it, Emily? Planning more vacations to fill your empty days?" The disdain in his voice was a sharp reminder of how far we drifted apart. "No, Richard, it's about us, about our family," I pressed on, feeling a strange mix of fear and empowerment. He scoffed, pushing his plate away. "What family, Emily? We don't have kids, remember? Or is this about that ridiculous DVD again?" I felt my resolve harden. "Yes, it's about the DVD, Richard. It's about Nathan, and it's about Laura." My heart pounded in my chest, but I was determined to confront him. For a moment, Richard seemed taken aback, his facade cracking. Then he regained his composure and sneered. "What do you want, Emily? An apology? An explanation? Or perhaps a share of my wealth?" His words were like venom, each syllable dripping with contempt. I stared at him, aghast at the man he'd become, or perhaps the man he'd always been. "You know what, Richard? I want the truth," I said, my voice rising. "I want to know why you brought that woman into our lives, why you lied to me, to everyone." Richard leaned back in his chair, a cold smile playing on his lips. "You want the truth, Emily? Fine. I was bored. You were always so busy playing the perfect housewife, so obsessed with having a child. Laura was different. Exciting." His confession struck me like a physical blow. He had betrayed our vows, our life together, for a mere diversion. I felt a surge of anger, hot and unyielding. "And Nathan?" I asked, my voice trembling with rage. Richard shrugged, his indifference a stark contrast to my turmoil. A convenient lie. Laura needed a father for her child, and I needed entertainment. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You're despicable, Richard. You used a child, a woman, to satisfy your selfish needs, and you used me, your wife." Richard stood too, his eyes gleaming with malice. "And what will you do about it, Emily? Divorce me? Go ahead. You'll be left with nothing." His threat hung in the air, but it no longer frightened me. I had nothing left to lose. "I'll do more than just leave you, Richard," I said, my voice cold and resolute. "I'll expose you for the fraud you are. Everyone will know the truth about Richard the Great." As I stormed out of the room, leaving Richard in stunned silence, I knew there was no turning back. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready to fight. I met with Daniel early the next morning, the winter sun casting a pale light over the city. He greeted me with a solemn nod, his eyes reflecting a shared determination. "We need to expose Richard, Emily," Daniel said as we found a quiet corner in the bustling cafe. "I have information from the private investigator. It's not pretty." I braced myself, knowing that whatever Daniel had to say would only fuel the fire of my resolve. "Tell me everything," I urged, my voice firm. Daniel slid a folder across the table to me. Inside were photographs, bank statements, and a timeline of Richard's deceit. It was all there in black and white. The affair with Laura, the secret payments, the lies he had woven so skillfully. "It's worse than we thought," Daniel said gravely. "Richard has been supporting Laura financially. He's been paying for her apartment, her living expenses, everything." I felt a cold fury settle in my chest. Richard had not only cheated on me, but had also used our resources to sustain his illicit affair. "And Nathan?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Daniel hesitated, then spoke. "Nathan is most likely your child, Emily. Laura was already pregnant when she met Richard. He knew it and still played the doting father to the world." The revelation hit me like a tidal wave. Richard's betrayal was more profound than I could have ever imagined. He had stolen the identity of a child, my child, for his twisted game. "We have to bring this to light," I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "We'll expose him at the family gathering. It's in 2 weeks. Everyone will be there." Daniel nodded in agreement. "I'll be there too. We'll confront him together." The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation and restless nights. I felt like a shadow in my own home, avoiding Richard's gaze, ignoring his attempts at conversation. My heart was set on one thing only: revenge. The day of the gathering arrived, a cold and clear winter day. The family home was filled with laughter and chatter, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. As the evening wore on, I found my moment. I stood, my hands trembling slightly, and addressed the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have something to show you. Something that will change the way you see Richard." All eyes turned to me, including Richard's, which held a flicker of fear for the first time. I played the DVD, the images of Laura giving birth, Richard by her side, filling the screen. The room fell into stunned silence. "This is not just any woman," I said, my voice steady. "This is Laura, Richard's mistress. And the child? He's mine. Richard has been living a lie." The gasps and murmurs filled the room. Richard stood up, his face contorted with rage. "Emily, what is this madness?" he spat out. "You're embarrassing yourself and our family." But I stood my ground. "No, Richard, the only embarrassment here is you. Your lies, your deceit, it all ends tonight." Daniel stepped forward, his presence a silent support. "She's telling the truth. I've seen the evidence. Richard has been funding Laura's life with his affair." Richard's face was a mask of fury and fear. "You'll pay for this, Emily. Both of you." But it was too late. The truth was out, and Richard's world was crumbling around him. As the family erupted into chaos, I felt a strange sense of calm. I had done it. I had exposed Richard for the fraud he was, and in doing so, I had reclaimed my life. The family gathering had turned into a battlefield, and I stood at its center, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and triumph. Richard's mask of composure had slipped, revealing the man he truly was. "You've gone too far, Emily," Richard hissed, his face twisted in anger. "You're trying to ruin me with lies." His denial only fueled my resolve. "Lies? You call this a lie?" I gestured to the screen, still displaying the image of him with Laura. "The truth is right there for everyone to see." Murmurs rippled through the room. Relatives exchanged shocked glances, their expressions ranging from disbelief to disgust. Richard's mother, a kind woman who had always treated me like a daughter, her voice trembled with emotion. "Richard, how could you do this? To Emily, to our family?" Richard's gaze darted around the room, seeking an ally, finding none. "Mother, it's not what it looks like. Emily is manipulating everything." But his words fell on deaf ears. The evidence was overwhelming. The family's disappointment and anger were palpable. Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady. "There's more. Richard has been financially supporting Laura and her child, using family funds. He's been living a double life." The revelation sent another shockwave through the room. Richard's father, a stern man of few words, rose from his seat. "Is this true, Richard? Have you been stealing from your own family?" Richard's composure crumbled. "It's not stealing. I earned that money. I can do what I want with it." His selfishness was on full display, and the family recoiled from him as if he were a stranger. "You're no son of mine," his father declared, his voice echoing with finality. I felt a strange sense of detachment as I watched Richard's world fall apart. He had built his life on lies and deceit, and now he was paying the price. "Emily, I'm sorry," Richard said, turning to me with desperation in his eyes. "I never meant for it to go this far. Please, let's talk about this." But it was too late for apologies. "There's nothing to discuss, Richard. I want a divorce, and I want you out of my life for good." The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging in the air. Richard looked around, his expression one of disbelief, as if he couldn't comprehend how quickly his life had unraveled. As I left the room, followed by a stunned silence, I knew that this was just the beginning. Richard would face the consequences of his actions, and I would start a new chapter of my life, free from his lies. The days following the family gathering were a whirlwind. News of Richard's deceit spread like wildfire, tarnishing his once respected name. I watched from a distance as the empire he built on lies crumbled around him. Richard attempted to reach out, his messages oscillating between pleading and anger. "Emily, we can fix this. Don't throw away what we have over one mistake," one message read. The next would be filled with accusations. "You've ruined me. How could you be so heartless?" But I remained resolute. His words no longer held power over me. I was done being a pawn in his twisted game. As the divorce proceedings began, Richard's true nature became even more apparent. He fought tooth and nail for every penny, his greed overshadowing any remnants of the man I once loved. I won't let you leave me with nothing, he spat during one of our meetings. You think you can destroy me and walk away? I'll make sure you regret this. But his threats were empty, his power waning. The evidence of his infidelity and misuse of funds had left him with little legal ground to stand on. The final blow came when his parents, once his staunchest supporters, turned their backs on him. We can't condone what you've done, Richard. You're no longer welcome in this family, his father declared, the disappointment in his voice cutting through the tense air of the courtroom. As I walked out of the courthouse, the final divorce papers in hand, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I was free from Richard, free from the web of lies that had ensnared me for so long. But my victory was bittersweet. I had loved Richard once, and watching him fall so far was not a cause for celebration. It was a sad, albeit necessary, end to a chapter of my life. As I started anew, I found strength in my newfound independence. I had faced Richard and his deceit head-on and emerged stronger. It was a testament to my resilience, a promise of a brighter future, free from the shadows of the past. The day I signed the divorce papers, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Relief, certainly, but also a sense of loss for what might have been. Richard, once a man I loved, had become a stranger defined by his greed and deceit. I started rebuilding my life piece by piece. The process wasn't easy. There were days when the weight of the past years seemed too much to bear. But with each passing day, I grew stronger, more confident in my newfound independence. One afternoon, several months after the divorce, I found myself at a small, quaint cafe. The place was a stark contrast to the lavish lifestyle I had once known with Richard. It was here, amidst the simple, unpretentious surroundings, that I finally felt at peace. As I sipped my coffee, lost in thought, a familiar face caught my attention. Daniel walked in, looking around before his eyes met mine. He smiled, a warm, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Emily, it's good to see you," he said, taking the seat opposite me. "Daniel, how have you been?" I asked, returning his smile. "Well, I've been busy, working on a new project, keeping myself occupied," he replied. "And you? How are you holding up?" I took a moment before answering, reflecting on the journey I had been through. "I'm doing well, actually. It's been a time of self-discovery, of healing." We talked for hours, our conversation flowing easily. Daniel shared his dreams for the future, his passion for his work. I found myself opening up about my aspirations, my hopes for a new chapter in my life. As the cafe began to empty, Daniel reached across the table, taking my hand in his. "Emily, I've seen the strength and courage you've shown. You've inspired me in more ways than you can imagine." His words warmed my heart, and I felt a connection with him, a bond forged through shared adversity. "Daniel, I started, but words failed me." He squeezed my hand gently. "I know, Emily, and I'm here whenever you're ready to start again, to start something new, together." I looked into his eyes, seeing the kindness and understanding that had been absent in my life for so long. In that moment, I realized that while one chapter had closed, another was waiting to be written. "Thank you, Daniel," I whispered, a sense of hope blossoming within me. "I think I'm ready to start that new chapter now." As we left the cafe together, I felt a lightness in my step, a sense of optimism about the future. Life had thrown me into the depths of despair, but I had emerged stronger, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead.